Decorating Pages is a podcast dedicated to taking you behind the scenes of the designs of your favorite TV shows and films. Each episode, I'll be sharing design stories from some of Hollywood's most famous sets, interviews from set decorators, production designers, directors, and actors about creating the look of TV and film, about their design inspirations, and stories that take sets from page to screen. Hello, and welcome to Decorating Pages. I'm your host, Kim Wanup. Well, I think I'm on week 3 of working, and now I feel like I'm in when I was talking about, I'm in week 3 of quarantine, because I still have no concept of time, although I think that August went really slow, but now it seems to have gone by so fast. Now, because I don't know. I have no sense of time. I know what sense of time I do have is that I feel like everything I order from smaller companies is taking longer. And I feel like that's an effect of pandemic. Just getting things for the set is taking longer. Our day-to-day actions in the set deck department, I would say, are taking a little bit longer. Just we're all being careful of, staying in our assigned little areas and pods, and, we try to take breaks to go out and get some fresh air. That's recommended. So we really have been able to, we're not really into it yet. I'm not dressing. We're lightly rough. We're roughing in a West Wing right now, which is a big deal, a big job. But it's a lot, and it's been hot, and the poor guys are huffing in these masks. I feel bad, but we are back to work. It's weird. I'm at the Fox lot, and I believe we're the only show here so far, and that's a weird feeling. I still have a 12-minute commute to work, so I'm not going to complain about that. And other than that, I'm so happy to see the prop houses open and able to spend money there, let's be honest, and hopefully get them back in the groove, because I know it's been hard on the business this year in every capacity. So really glad to see familiar faces and hear familiar voices at the prop houses. That's pretty much what I've been doing. Let's see. I don't feel like I've been watching a lot of TV. I mean, I've gone back to start to research a lot for the show that I'm on, American Crime Story, and more White House and specific lighting in certain movies. So I've been doing that type of research, and we started Outlander, which I had never seen and heard very good things about. It's good. It's beautifully done. I don't know. The whole voiceover talking and narration, I don't buy it either. But, I think we got halfway through season 1, and then I kind of gave up, and we started rewatching Mindhunter, the first season of that, which I think is just such a good show. The lighting in that, too, is superb. And the set deck. It's just all very well done. Anything serial killers, I'm kind of in on. So, other than that, I got Housewives. I feel like I haven't watched anything. I don't know. Does anybody have any suggestions? I'm kind of out of shows. I'm not watching Breaking Bad. I know. Everyone has watched Breaking Bad. I'm not doing it. I heard all about it when it was on. It's kind of like this, I told everyone to watch The Wire, and I feel like nobody ever believed me. So then everybody got on this Breaking Bad bandwagon, and I was like, no, I'm not watching it. I already saw a great show. I'm not doing it. I know it's a good show, and I know what happens, unfortunately. So I'm not watching it. No. So don't suggest that one to me. On this episode, I speak with production designer Jamie McCall, who was nominated for an Emmy for her work on Feud, and nominated for ADG Awards for Feud and Versace, the American Crime Story Versace. And I'm working with her now, so this was kind of nice. And I've worked with her before. She is super sweet. She started off graphic designing, and that's how I met her on Parks and Rec. And then she art directed the show Love that we were doing, and she did some graphics for Good Place, but I don't know if I was there for that. But anyway, so she's a fantastic graphic designer. She has a key eye for color and design, and I'm really excited to start this American Crime Story impeachment with her, because it's going to be a long road together. So I hope she likes me in the end. No, she will. But we talk about her getting into this and moving up through the department. We also talk about her production designing and just being nonstop in the last 2 years. American Crime Story, Pose, The Politician, the upcoming film The Prom, and now American Crime Story. She's a powerhouse, really. Super strong woman, and I am so happy to be working with her. So I hope you enjoy.
When I answered, he was like, "Is this Jamie?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, so he's like, I'm going to be honest. I called you because you'd worked in North Carolina, but also because I this is a hard movie of hiking and carrying things. And I honestly called you because I thought you were a guy."
At least he admitted it. And I was like, I'm not, but I'm not worried about, the physical aspect of this movie. Because there's a lot of hiking. I mean, we would hike a mile in, and we hired Sherpas and oh my God.
And that's why I find it so hilarious when everybody gets up in arms when I find a set that's on the second floor of a building that only has stairs or something. It's like, dude, we Sherpa'd shit in a mile. With
it depends.
Camera.
Yeah, it depends. But everyone on that project probably had the mindset, this is what it's going to be. When you take, us out in the scout van, it's like, oh, you know how much cable this is going to be? Doing, how many lunch boxes we got to get?
Yeah. They did, but and not everybody was, super outdoorsy either, but they did, whatever. But it was... That's where I'm like, especially when I worked in New York, they were like, what, it's on the second floor? There's no elevator? How are we going to get stuff up there? I'm like, they don't even.
Oh my God.
I'm like, it's the perfect location. We're going to make it work.
It's it's a good exercise, people.
Yeah, exactly.
I know I have so many graphic questions for you because, mostly because I know what great graphics you've done. But
thanks.
I was really bothered by the fact that you only did 2 episodes on Parks. That's not true, is it?
No, that must be...
You're only, on IMDb, it only says 2 episodes. I was like, really?
No, I was there that whole...
I thought you were there that whole season.
Yeah, he was. I'll have to go in and check. And
you gotta check your shit.
There's also something on IMDb that I've been trying for years, and I've emailed them for years, that says I art directed this movie, that I have not art directed that movie. It's some weird... I don't know, is there a tennis guy on the front or something? I don't know. It's called something.
Zombievers?
No, that I did.
I don't know. High Maintenance?
Yeah.
Oh, as Jamie Walker. Because there is a couple Jamie Walkers, there's a couple Jamie McCalls on IMDb also. Maybe that's your problem.
I don't know, but I've written to them 5 times for over years. And I'm like, please take this off. I did not do this movie. And they keep putting me in.
I do not want this on my resume.
No, I mean, it seems fine, whatever, but I just didn't do it.
It is weird to reach out to people like the storybook artist yesterday storyboard artist, and just have him reply and be like, yeah, sure, I'm up for it. And I'm like, okay, cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Who was it?
His name is Gabriel Hardman, and he's done like Inception and Interstellar, and started out doing like all the Austin Powers, and just did Call of the Wild and Tropic Thunder. It was interesting because I never realized how little a storyboard artist actually is involved with a production designer. I mean, he made it pretty clear that, you know, he's hired, you know, almost at the same time as a designer and or before them, and works a lot with the director. Mm-hmm. And so then I went into like, you know, well, how does that, does your designs, does your stuff influence stuff? Like, how does that work? And he was he's a film guy, like, there wasn't much TV talk. So I'm like, yeah, I think once or twice I feel like the director's been like, we should storyboard this. Like, I remember that once, like, I remember Dean saying it once on Parks and being like, whoa, they're going to get a storyboard artist for this? This is crazy. Like, big time. But
I feel like it's something that is so beneficial to the art department, and that it's completely fallen off. We did a lot, we storyboarded a ton on Banshee, and it's so helpful for the art department because you know, sure, you're not 100% locked into each shot, but at least you know what they're looking to get and what are like the hero elements of the whole shebang, the whole scene. And there's some, especially I think, there's certain, it would have been very beneficial, I think, for like Pose or, you know, very action kind of moving, everybody just to see what the world going to be. Or a musical number or something like that. I think it's not a lost art, but I do wish they were used more.
Yeah. I really, when in talking to him, it made me realize so much more of like how much camera work they're looking into rather than just the whole scene or the whole set. They're really focusing on where the camera angle is going to be and wide. And I was like, hey man, keep it wide. I was like, draw it wide. Right. We like it wide. Yeah. He's like, yeah, you know, I don't, you know, that's not my concern. I was like, okay. I mean, and I get it. It's not. Yeah. And but I did ask him, like, have you gone into sets after you've storyboarded and then been like, oh, that's cool. They put a door over here. Like, maybe I'll see if I could storyboard it like this. And he's like, oh, definitely. So I think the influence of the set is still there, even after he's been drawn, it's been presented, it's been accepted. Like, they still make corrections based on the sets, which I think is good.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But it was really interesting to talk to someone else that's not like in our inner circle. I'm trying to get more people of like the whole art department encompassing of what everybody does. So, which is why you, being graphics and an art director and then designer, I mean, I don't know any other graphic designers that have made it to production designer. I think it's you. I mean, I'm sure there are, but I don't know anyone. Yeah.
I think there's, I think I know of one other, but not well enough to be like, oh, this is their name. I think I have heard of one other.
And did you go to like school or classes for graphics?
I actually went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York, and got a 4-year degree in design. Nice. And part of it was graphics. And I went for advertising, art direction, and like kind of, it was like, we didn't really have minors, but I would say I minored in graphic design. And then at that time when I graduated, it was, you know, the ad agency wanted you to work for a year for free in New York City. It's like,
how do you afford that?
For New York City, like, you know, I was lucky enough that my parents helped me through school, so I couldn't very well ask them and be like, hey, can you foot the bill for another, you know, few years while I get going? So, you know, I moved back to Boston and started waitressing, and then saw Lord of the Rings, And my boyfriend at the time was going to Emerson. And we just decided when he graduated, we were going to move to LA. So we did. And I was like, I'm going to go to LA and be a graphic designer for TV and film.
That's it.
And that was it. Yeah. And then, you know, he graduated in May, and that September we drove across the country, and his one of his brothers was already here for acting. He had been here, I think, a year or something like that. And we had at least had somewhere to drive to, and then stayed with them for like a couple weeks. And then we found our own apartment, and then we all started looking for jobs. And then he got a job at a bakery called, it used to be called Sugar Plum, and then Susina.
Oh, and I loved Susina. Oh,
yeah.
I loved it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the original owner, Jenna Turner, my boyfriend at the time got a job there, him and his brother. And we all hit it off because she was East Coast. She was from New York. And, you know, she was like, what do you want to do? And I told her what I, you know, went to school for and this and that. And Bill Bresky actually designed her bakery. So she was like, oh, I should get you in touch with Bill. And this kind of went on for like a year or so. And then finally I met with Bill in like this random parking lot while he was doing a pilot somewhere in Hollywood. And he was doing another pilot. And I showed him like my portfolio, and he's just like, I just don't know, you know, I don't know if you have the experience for this pilot, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, just give me a chance. Just please give me a chance. I'll do it, like, please. So he did, and I ended up working on that. And it was called Queen Bee with Danny DeVito and Alicia Silverstone. That never went anywhere. And then
she's a kiss
the
of death.
Decorator on the what?
She's a kiss of death on TV.
So the decorator on that, Daniel Berman, went off to go do House. And at the time when House started up, they were looking for, you know, PAs, and I obviously wasn't in the union. And so Derek Hill reached out to me, and I interviewed with him, and they hired me as a PA on House for season 2.
Oh, wow.
And then I worked for a year with him. And I was like, listen, I need to get into the union because, you know, I feel like I'm doing a little bit of stuff here and there. And I really want this to be my career. So if you can't help me for next season, get into the union, or if you know, a way to go about it or give me some advice, then I'm going to have to leave and go do something else. And he just so happens just got the job on Into the Wild. And he was like, listen, I just got this job with Sean Penn. I think it's not union, but it's probably going to go union. And that's one way that you could get in. So the beginning of season 3 of House, I went off and did Into the Wild with Derek. And he was all over the country. And I was based in LA. He what?
He was still doing House, I believe.
Oh, yeah. He was still doing House, but I was not.
Yeah.
And he was like all over, and I would send out graphics, and then I would call like North Dakota, you know, Kinko's and be like, hey, I'm you know, printing this your way. Like, is it, you know, and then the art director would go pick it up. And so that's how we did the graphics all over the country with me based in LA.
Oh, wow.
And then I got my 30 days, and I was in. And then once that movie was over, I went back to House as their graphic designer and stayed there for 7 years.
It was like it's so funny because it's like you and me were trapped on the Fox lot for 5, like I was there, I think 6 years, and you were there at the same time. And I don't think I ever ran.
We were like close by too. Cause
yeah.
Yeah.
You were like in the drapery building, right?
Yes.
And we were like in the back, but our stage 10 where the back lot was like right by you. And
yeah.
But I think that's where I met, I think I met Derek at like parties or something, but Derek Hill, who I've had on the podcast, is...
Oh, he did?
Oh, yeah.
I haven't heard that one. I need to check that one. Yeah.
I got 2 episodes out of him because he is such a fantastic storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
And he has so many stories, and he just works. And I feel like I don't know any other production designer like him that treats this like an absolute business deal. I feel like he's just, this is what we're going to do. This is how much it's going to cost. This is what you want. Here it is. And he's blunt, and he's he hires great people. He does a ton of research, and you know what you're going to get from him. And I've just always felt like, even when I first met him, like, this guy's different than, like, I was working with Phil Toulon at the time, who was like, let's draw. Let's just create. Let's draw. Let's do this. And maybe it'll be like this, or maybe I'll draw this and it could be like this, or what if, and the airplane crashed, what if this happened, and blah, blah, blah. And just like, I guess not more creative, but more like imaginative of what we were going to do. Whereas I felt, even working with Derek on just one pilot, he's very direct, and this is what it is. So, which is great to work with someone like that, because I'm sure you'll agree, because then you know where you stand too.
I always knew where I stood with Derek.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Derek quotes is when I would leave at 8:00 at night, like, Derek, I'm going to go. It's, I was here at like 7, I'm going to go. And he'd look up and be like, half day?
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to go.
Yeah.
But he's been such an important part of my career, because he's someone I keep in contact with all the time.
Me too. He's
someone who's always reaches out to me, or I reach out to him if I have any questions, especially when I first started getting started. I'm like, he's just been so helpful. And speaking back to like what you were saying, he taught me a lot on, being blunt, like, this is what it is. And a lot of his design is based in research and reality, which I think a lot of, I've taken a lot of that too. And, throughout my career, different people inspire you, or you take from them certain things. And Derek has been, with budgets and just watching him, just graphic designing them, but find out outside. So I was never one to sit with headphones on and just like do my work. I always was like listening, because it was such a great way to learn. I mean, how else do you learn these skills? And it's not like they teach this stuff if you were to take a film class or, so he was such a instrumental part of my career. And he also, when people have reached out to him to recommend me, he said, he was like, anybody who's worked under me can handle the job, because I teach them. And I was like, it's true. You did. You always expect like everybody to be on their game and be top notch and like, no excuses, but also willing to teach,
Yeah.
And that was great. It was a great environment.
Yeah. And he was there with you at house the whole time? Did you?
No, when did he leave? I think he left season 4, the beginning of season 4. So I had 2 seasons with him, I think. And then Jeremy Castles and Natalie Wyman, the art director, took over, and they lasted the rest of it. Yeah. And I learned a tremendous amount from them too. That was, because I had been there. Natalie used to call me the dinosaur, because I was the one that had been there for a few years before they had all like kind of showed up and got settled in. And that was a huge learning part for me too, because they trusted me. And I started going on like tech scouts to take all the measurements and graphic stuff for me, because they knew that I was going to be the one doing them, and why not, try to teach a person. Right. So that was great experience. And I was like, I don't know a lot of graphic designers that go on tech scouts.
No,
so I feel like
smart. It's
from early,
if they can.
Exactly. And House was busy for sure. There were definitely busy moments, but like we somehow worked it so that the tech scout days I didn't go on every tech scout, but ones that were graphically heavy, like subway station and stuff like that. Yeah. They would just send me out, because it's just easier if you're taking your own measurements and your own shorthand.
Don't you?
That was a great way to learn.
I always think I'm lucky with Bones, because on House, sort of the same thing. It might have been like a medical, or it might have been like a police thing, but we still got to do so many varieties of sets. It was like a school of like, okay, this week is a hotel room exploding, or a hotel room, or the subway station, or this. Like, there's just so many things in a season. Even if you stayed one season on a 1 hour long, you get the variety of sets that you get to do, I think, is like going to school. I think it's like invaluable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And at that time, when it was 22 episodes,
yeah,
I mean, you were there most of the year.
Yeah.
So that was like a full year of training.
Yeah. I mean, I never got any work on the hiatus because the hiatus was only like a month and a half. I was like, oh, I'll take the 6 weeks. And then as I look back, it's sort of like, oh, I mean, that was the fear when I was done Bones. I don't have any contacts. I've been here so long. I don't work in the off season. And thank God for Ian Phillips, who hired me on Parks. So, yeah. Who hired you on Parks, right?
Who hired me on Parks,
yeah.
Yes.
So then you went to Dexter, right?
I did. Adam actually brought, kind of was my contact through that. They needed a second graphic designer on. They had like a huge mega episode and it just was too much for one. So I was brought on as a second just for a little bit to help out with Dexter. So I was on it, but not like the main person on that.
Well, because you have The Office too. You have one episode for The Office, which I love. The Office. I know. He was going on vacation for like a month or something, and they needed somebody to cover. And I was like, sure. Yeah. Like, that's an awesome show. I'll do it. Well, isn't that good too, having the position of a graphic designer if you're not tied to a show? Look how many other like places you can get hired for just like to pop in and like, okay, change up my regiment of, instead of being at house or whatever, it seems like then you get to like jump around. It's awesome.
Totally. And even I didn't take like a lot of work on my time off, but I think I did that over like the Christmas hiatus on House. We had like an extended one and he just happened to need to go away and I jumped in and did that. And then I did some stuff here and there during my month and a half hiatuses on House. So I did get to meet people, but I think after House, the House family kind of stayed together when we all went to North Carolina and did Banshee for 2 years. So with Natalie and Jeremy. So it was like, even though I kind of branched off and did a couple things here and there, it was always like the House family that kept me going for a few years after House.
How was it just going to another city to work? I mean, were you like, oh shit? Or were you like, this is awesome?
It was awesome. We met some great people. I don't think it would have been as awesome if Heath's career wasn't as flexible.
Mm-hmm. Your husband.
And thank God it was at the time and has been throughout my career so far because he's gone with me every place. I think it would have been really, I hats off to anybody who goes without their significant other. I think for me, it would be really difficult not to have to see Heath every day.
Yeah.
So it was great. And it was, it's just so enlightening to work in other states and places you never in a million years thought you would ever live.
Yeah.
You really get to know the people and the culture and, working in Charlotte or working, I worked in Asheville. I was there for 6 months. It's just like we did on Banshee, we did a little bit of time in New Orleans and, just going all around and meeting different people. And it's just nice. I think you learn more, if you just do one, if California does it this way, it's like, well, what if we did it this way? People do it different in different states, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. I mean, hats off. I've already said I could never be a New York decorator at this point. I'm too set in my ways of like, I don't know how they do it. It's the city. I don't know how they do it with the trucking and whatever and the pickups and the traffic. And then they're in charge of like windows, or all of the carpets and like all this other things. And it is the experience of like, oh, LA is pretty like cush kind of like, only because you feel like you have. It's like the production designer from Veep when he came, Jim Gloucester, when he came to LA, and he had asked for something. I was like, I can't get that by Friday. I can't get that. And he's like, we're in LA. I was told I could get anything when I come to LA. And I was like, all right, well, not that. Okay.
Yeah.
That became like a running joke of like, I was told when I come to LA, I could have anything. And I was like, no, you're kidding me. No, you can't have it. But
especially carpet, because all carpet comes from Atlanta, and it's crazy.
Yeah. The carpet will affect me just as much of like, when is that carpet going in? When is that carpet going to be done? When can I get in? When is the carpet going to be in?
Carpet.
So how was it a certain like opportunity of moving up, or were you just like, all right, I'm done, I gotta move up?
Well, it's interesting. You know what? When I was graphic designing on House Forever, and I'd be listening because the like office conference room where they had all the meetings and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I don't no interest being in all that jazz. But then once towards the end of House and working on a couple different things, I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready. I'm ready to move up. I'm ready to be not behind the computer every single day. And when I got that opportunity to go to Banshee, I kind of set it up where I was like, listen, I definitely want to go. Can I go as an assistant art director? And they gladly brought me on as that. And Natalie and Jeremy were great, and showed me a lot, and I showed a lot of interest with with plans and stuff like that. That's often a question I get is like, well, how did you learn how the set design part of it?
Right.
For me, always the shows that I worked on, set designers and graphic designers, we always sat together, and right. I always had to work with them very closely because they're building the building that this giant graphic or these things are going in. And it's like, I have to learn, I have to know how to read a plan. Yeah. No, I'm not a set designer, but I know how to read plans because I had to. And then when I had questions, everybody's always super cool and answered my questions, and then just got to learn it. And, so even in Banshee, North Carolina, it was even more so. They really introduced me, and then I got to talk to construction more and the builds and all that stuff.
It is sort of like the graphic designer and the set designer are like stuck in the office all the time. It's a sin. Together
all the time. Yeah. So, if I ever had any question, which I did, I always had an interest in architecture. And if I wasn't so bad at algebra, I may have gone to
I could become architecture. I couldn't do the physics. I mean, I couldn't probably do the algebra either, but like I could not do the physics. Like I was like, I'm out. I can't.
Yeah.
I was cheating. I was like writing down all the answers in my calculator. It took me longer to like program my scientific calculator with all the answers than it would have probably to study. But yeah, no, I was like,
my problem, I think, was that my algebra teacher junior year was the dean of students. Oh. So we didn't get along very well. I was in detention all the time.
So, there should be like an art department detention. Like you did what? All right, you're in detention. You're
detention.
Yeah, you're in timeout. Maybe that's what it is. You're in timeout. We could say it to like producers.
Yeah, you're in a timeout. And
you're in a timeout right now. I can't talk to you about a budget. I can't. And then it seems like you were out of town for a really long time, though. I mean,
oh my God.
You were out of town for like years.
Years. Back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
I mean, we have moved so much. He, like, at the thought of moving, he just wants to cry. But I think, when you can.
Yeah.
And it's going to help your career, why not? Like, or a great opportunity presents itself. Sure. Why not travel? It's such a great way to see the country and meet new people and get different experiences. And I am very fortunate to be paid to go do this stuff, to travel. I mean, that's crazy.
And the influence that we get from it, like always having that like designer eye on or decorator eye, like, looking at the little things that this community has or this little town, the architecture that they have, like, I feel like we all store it. Even though we have digital cameras, we all sort of store that in our heads of like, that could be researched one day. I'm gonna remember that. So, and plus you must have been on a million like locations to like. I mean,
all the or even just traveling. Like, let's go to Atlanta for the weekend, or let's do this for the weekend. And then you like get to see a bunch of different places. Even when I was just in New York, just traveling to like certain places in New Jersey and stuff like that, you get to see you register it all, mental photos. And then when you come out here back to LA and they're like, we're going to do New York.
Like, are we? Yeah.
Or like, oh, we're DC. You're like, hey.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Well, I know. I've been in DC for a long time. Because Bones was in DC, and then Veep was in DC. I feel like I got DC down.
We just got to take our creative licenses of some things and,
Yeah. The first time I worked with you, I guess, was Parks, and then we joined up on Love together.
Oh, right.
Which was fun. I mean, I liked that show. I didn't get it. Like, watching it, I was like, this is so stupid. But I really loved the sets that we got to do, and I really loved showing LA for LA.
I enjoyed that show. I enjoyed working with you and Ian.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was close to where I was living, which is always nice. Creatively for me, it was, LA for LA. I think it's more fun for you because you got to go in and, redecorate certain things. And for the art director at the time, I was like, well, there's not a whole lot we're doing here.
Listen, there were plenty of times Patrick and I would see the art director roll up and we'd be like, what are you even doing here? What are you here to check on me? Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Like,
I need some purpose to show up. But so but that's a show that I feel like I really got into greens on because, we had a lot to hide here and there and, the scheduling of the greens on and off the stages, that was, a learning thing for me, doing all that. So, I got in with the painters and they were great and taught me a lot of things too. Cause that was another good learning show because I had some, a lot of questions.
Yeah. I look at the show and I like what we did. Mm-hmm. Almost on every set. Like, I'm like, oh, that was good. Or like, oh, like the way, even like the streets that they chose to them to walk down and the murals. And like, I just think it's actually a good case study of like LA in, 2016. I just feel like that was we did it right. And I'm sort of proud of that, of like, oh, I wonder if anyone will ever look at that and be like, oh, LA? You need LA mid-teens? Yeah, you should check this out. Like, that's always one of my hopes of, like, the work that you do is then referenced. I feel like that's
that is like a documentary on LA at that point.
Yeah. So that was, I think, one of the fun things about that show. And it was kind of super easy. It's like, although I didn't like Sony, I don't like working in Sony, but whatever. And we worked with Ian Phillips again, which was fun.
He's always a good time.
Yeah, he's a good time guy. And then you hit the big time.
Then I feel like I was thrust into the big time.
Yeah, and then you were thrust into big time, and thankfully you looked back and say hello to a couple of us, because then you get into the Ryan Murphy world of just, I feel like anything goes, and design is king, which is,
I love it.
Awesome. So
it is awesome.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and I'm so thankful that Will Thayer passed my name along and got me the interview.
That's probably the only shout out Will ever get. He was a construction coordinator. He's a very nice guy. I'm joking. And we worked with him on Love, so that makes sense that then names get passed along, which is always nice. So your first thrust into that was Feud?
Yes.
I wish that I could watch Feud every day. I love the old Hollywood. I love Susan Sarandon. I just love the whole thing. Like, I want to watch it all the time, and I'd have to buy it to watch it right now, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to buy it. And I should have kept my, like, Emmy screener or something of it when I had it. I think it was only one episode, but what? I loved it. I think just a phenomenal job on that. And I'm so jealous of the amount of research that you got to do.
Like, lots of research. We also had a researcher on who, helped, because it just required so much that you had to have a full-time person doing that.
Yeah.
So that was great to have that, once it's coming up, it's like, oh, here's the folder of all that. And then, I would also do our own research for it. And Judy was constantly, in books, and she does her own amazing research and has her own ideas. And the thing I like about Feud in the look of Feud was that Judy Becker took that time period and kind of put her own little twist on it, with some of the pops of color and just her Judy touch, which I think was really elegant and beautiful.
It's very turned up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the colors turned up, and the style is just pushed a little bit more, and you can definitely see what you're talking about in it. What were like the big? I mean, the house was a build, right? Joan Crawford's house.
Yes,
was a build. So that bedroom is spectacular. The living room is spectacular.
Yes. All real marble in the bathroom.
What?
What? That's something that I appreciate, because working prior to that, I'd never worked with a designer who was like insisting on real material, like has to be real material. Just not that I've worked with. I'm sure that I'm sure a lot of people do it. And we had real marble on almost every set that had that. And so I've taken that and I'm like, well, we could faux it, but by the time you have a painter do it and this and that and that, and when we can go get a slab for $700, like, why not use the real thing?
Right.
So that's something, one of the things I took away from Judy was like, yeah, don't be shy away from the real product.
That's a great lesson. I mean, when you can get away with it and when you can implement it, real is always better. And especially marble, because as fantastic as painters are, there's a lot of times where you can spot fake marble, like painted marble, which then you're like, oh, these columns. Should I put some fabric on these? Like,
or just the sheen sometimes is just, and again, they do a spectacular job. I've also done full marble with scenics who are super talented, and it looks great. And it is hard to tell, but I think sometimes when you can, or if the painters are busy, just get the real thing.
Yeah. How long were you on Feud?
I mean, I was on Feud. Well, I was on Feud the whole time. I say that I was thrust into Feud because I think I was brought on with only like 3 weeks of prep left.
Mm.
There had been 2 other art directors on before me, and then I was thrown into the mix. So I took that over through with like 2 or 3 weeks left of prep, and then I finished the entire show.
I was asking that because I thought it was the same deal as American Crime Story, where it went on for like almost a year, but I guess not. That's fine. No, it was on schedule, kind of.
It for the most part, it was on schedule. Yeah, I think we finished like maybe we were a month over or something, but nothing crazy.
Was it on the easier side to shoot that in LA, since it's LA, since it's like, the 50s and 60s, or?
It was, and, Judy Becker did a great job finding locations that, hadn't really been touched. The only problem we ran into is just like everything when you do a period show, Big Brother's everywhere. There's cameras everywhere. So there's all these like mystery boxes that we had to put up everywhere to, hide everything. It's just impossible now to shoot period without having cameras looking at you everywhere.
And like cameras are,
exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I could watch it right now. If somebody threw it on, I'd be like, I'll be right back. Even just the acting and the costumes and everything is just fantastic.
So good.
Did you get any break between Feud and American Crime Story, Versace? Or did you go
I think we got a couple weeks, like 2 or 3 weeks off, and then we started Versace. And then that went from like March until the following Christmas. So that was a good run.
Yeah, because you had like just sort of shut down to like get scripts and stuff, right? I mean, that happens on shows periodically. It's not like only that show.
Well, the good thing with Versace is Ryan has multiple writers doing different projects and stuff like that. So at least that the Versace guy was one of the writers, and Ryan, we're working on that. Ryan's really good about separating his time for all his projects and meeting with the writers of that show. So we had a good, I think we had we had the first 2 scripts going into it, I believe, which, they were hour long, and that was a good. And we had stuff to shoot in Miami. So there was, a lot of, which we did. I think we shot some stuff in LA, and then we went to Miami for a little bit, and then we came back to LA, and, just gives people more time to get the sets done in LA.
Did you go to Chicago for that too? Or was that all here?
Some of it was all the interior was here, and the exterior we shot in Chicago.
Huge. I mean, it's a massive, like, when you look at the whole thing, it's a massive story over years, because you have all the flashbacks of both of their lives, Versace and Andrew Cunanan, and the different type of lives. Like, all of the sets that you did that were Italy are just gorgeous. And I feel like you probably had to work a lot too with like lighting and the wall. I mean, I don't know, were the walls all marble there too?
It was, working with Simon Dennis, the DP, on the rest of it. I know Nelson started it, and then Simon took over. But he's always such a pleasure to work with. And that was the first time I worked with Simon, and he's lovely.
Yeah. I only just met him because of the Next American Crime Story, but he seems really like a nice guy.
Super nice. I also did Politician with him, and Pose, and he's very collaborative, which I appreciate.
It seems like I should be getting maybe half of his paycheck, though, since I'm providing most of his lighting.
Well,
I don't know about that, but yeah, that's something I gotta take up with the union, I guess. And then were you thrust into taking over American Crime Story as the production designer? I mean,
as well. That was a slower thrust. Ryan had asked Judy Becker to go on to Startup, do the pilot of Pose. And so she left Versace to go do that. And then I, as the art director, bumped up into the production designer position. It felt like a natural transition, I guess, for the team and everybody. Yeah. So, and then I did that. I can't even tell you what episode it was because we were shooting out of order at that point. So people are like, "Oh, what episode did you take over?" I'm like, honestly, I don't remember what. I think it was I have no idea because we shot out of order, and I think it's like I did 4 and 5, or she did 6. I can't even remember now. I have to go back and look at IMDb for what exactly the episodes were.
And then, let's see. I know that I came in because it's kind of unusual even for there to be a second decorator. I mean, the show was so busy and the schedule was so crazy. I don't even know how Matthew Ferguson did it all without someone else. I mean, I know that he had a tremendous team of buyers and he's just so good. But I remember getting a call and it was so Veep had gone down because of Julia's cancer, so I was available, I was like, oh, well, we're out of a job. No shows are starting up in the middle of October. Like, all right, guys, we'll do a pilot in January. See you later. Well, or a show. And then you called, and I was like, oh, thank God. And it's like, we just need help with this. I know. Actually, I think you called, and then Matthew called because he was very kind and called and tried to sort of ease you into it or give you, like, reality of what this is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it being like, it's just the one set. It's the really important. It's the boathouse where he kills himself. Like, we have all the research. We already did the bedroom. Like, this is it. And then it was like I started, and then the next day it was like, hey, do you think maybe you could do? Do you think maybe you could do this other office? And it was like, sure, I could throw in another office. Like, okay, cool. And then it was like, but it was like only 2, I think. Oh, the party house. I did that party house too.
Oh, right.
But I feel like I got sets that were like on the easier side. I think he was kind to ask me to do things that were on the easier side of, but big sets. Like,
they were massive. The party house and the boathouse, I mean, that was a huge set.
Yeah, the boathouse was huge. I mean, doing a office and everything is always like, all right, we need like 25 computers, we need 25 desk setups, we need like, it's sort of repetitive, and then you get into your details, and it's slightly annoying sometimes. So I understand, like, she could do the office, and I'm fine with that because you could do it.
Right.
But I was so impressed, really, with the art department of how much research there was for every single set. And I don't think, I mean, we did a ton of research on Veep. Tons. But it was sort of like, either it was like, I showed the designer or he showed me, and then, you know, we had our Dropbox and we could look on there and it's all on there. But visually, when you walked into the art department of Versace, it was, the walls were just covered with samples and like boards on every single set you guys have done, which takes a lot of time to do, but is so helpful.
So helpful.
So how is that? Is that a Ryan process, or is that a Judy process, and then a you process? Like, how does that come about that it's so visual everywhere?
It, you know, Judy had implemented that, or whether that's always been her process. We did that on Feud, but the thing to pitch Ryan ideas for each individual set that he's, you know, written is you have your meeting with him. So what you do is you put your boards together of each set, and you're like, this is what I'm thinking for this, you know. Or in the concept meeting, he usually gives you like, he kind of, you know, he's very good about setting up the world, and you're like, okay, I get it. And then you put your concept board for that, and then you have your meetings. But when you have your meetings, you have to pitch him like however many, you know, there's tons of sets in an episode. So you know, and so you're like whipping through your boards because he's, you know, limited in time. So you try to make your boards as tight as possible. And he's really good about like going through and marking them like, yes, 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 and yes, like these things. And it's great for us to then go back to our team and be like, this is what Ryan really responded to. So this is going to be our world.
Right.
So it's collaborative in a sense where it's like he gets to pitch what he's thinking, and then we get to pull out of his brain visuals. One of my favorite things of working with Ryan is that I get to do my mood boards for each set and then pitch them to him. And it's very gratifying when I've hit the mark. And, you know, sometimes I don't. And that's, you know, like back to the drawing board. But I think the graphic designer in me and how I do my boards is all digital. You know, I print them out.
It is different.
I design them.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy that part of it, because then for me, building my set from the graphic design base is like a very visual way for me for it all to come together for me. And then it's easier for me to explain it to my team and to pitch it to Ryan. Because I feel like I've like created it from the bottom up.
And on the boards, you're pitching wall color, you're pitching if you have carpet samples, if you have any other material samples, you're trying to, you know, show what the textures in the room will be. You have research on there. I know just from the little prep that we had, sometimes if there's, you know, room for furniture, or if furniture is a different board. So you're trying to get that whole picture in there to present, because I agree, it then just makes it easier for us to be like, okay, I'm on the road. I can go. So I think in any art department, we've done boards always, like, for huge sets or like perm sets. In the beginning of the season, we'll do boards, and as the season goes on, you don't have time, or I'm not going to do a board for this cafe that's like a swing set. But in this Ryan Murphy world, where everything is so visual, I feel like everything is so cohesive in his mind that we all have to be on the same page, and it's super helpful to have these boards done, and a lot of work for your art department to put them together, and for you to approve and you to go over, and you have so many sets. You have so many sets. So many sets.
Always.
So yeah, but I find it like super helpful just in the little prep that we've had so far. But yeah, but the whole room, the whole art department, which we are in the same art department that you were now, all the walls were covered. And I was like, oh my God.
We had, because we did Feud in that same section, so we had it dialed in, and Judy's very much a person who needs to, feel and touch everything. And so the way we had set up that art department for Feud carried over to Versace. So we had, it was almost like we were on a 22 episode show, Feud going right into Versace. So we had it all dialed in, and it was great because we had all the samples and we had everything. We now back in that same exact place for a crime story. Like, it's not set up yet. We don't have all of our, it's going to take time. And by the time we get it all set up again, it's going to be it's over.
Because when I saw it, you were at the end of Versace. So you literally had been there like over a year in this not physically, but like in this office space was an art department for, a lot of sets. So you had a tremendous amount of library and samples and fabric and carpet samples, and it was overwhelming, but like, wow, this is creative, this is amazing. Like,
it was a great environment. I'm sad when we had to strike it all.
Start over again. You got to give those wallpaper books back to Aztec sometime. So you get done these shows, and then you're balls out. You're just doing like 2 or 3 shows at a time now.
Well,
cross country. Then you're doing like cross country work.
Cross country. After that, I went to do Pose. Judy did the pilot and the second episode of Pose, season 1. And then she think had another project lined up or something. So then I got the call and asked if I wanted to take over on episode 3 of Pose, season 1. And then that just carried over. And then from there, when I was in New York, Ryan asked me to do The Politician. So then I flew back to LA at the end of Pose and then back to New York a little bit. And then started that, and then back. Yeah. So I was flying back and forth.
I watched the first season of Pose. I haven't gotten into the second season. Well, maybe I did. Maybe I started the second season, but I haven't gotten back to it. It's sad to me. Like, the whole thing is like exciting and sad. And and the sets are like that, like gritty and then like 80s glitzy. Like they're so seesaw of that. So when you are doing like the swing sets of it, or new sets come up, like how are you balancing that of we got to make it really dirty, or we got to bring this up, because it's at Electra's Loft. It's such a great gem of a set, I feel, because it's so versatile. So it's,
that was one that I inherited, so I can't take any credit for that. That was established in the pilot, and but I think for me, once I took over, I tried to create, taking my cues from Derek. I, heavily did my research and that time period. And so for me, in working with costumes, I took it as I wanted, the background to be as realistic as possible. And then Ana Lucia and Lou would come in with their costumes, and it would just like the characters would pop off the screen, and you're like, oh, you got some gritty, real New York behind them, but you see the amazingness of Pose with the colors and the stuff that they did in the costuming. And especially in season 1. In season 2, we kind of, because then it turned to the 90s. Yeah. And I still kept it, especially for certain characters like Miss Orlando and stuff like that. We really, just referenced, all of our research, like what was going on at that time period, or is there a trash, strike at that point, or what did this neighborhood look like back then? And luckily it was pretty well documented back then. So, research, and we had boards up all around the office, and it'd be like, what, I had a certain like trash level that I would give to the set deck department. We'd be like, okay, we're at like a 3 max, like this is like max capacity trash in the streets now. Like this is going to be a big one. And it depended on the scene and where they were in New York at that time.
It is fun to get so much research and then pulling tidbits out of it and not using it all. I think editing too in our world is so important, and like, because you could find like 20 great pieces of research for like this one set, and if you tried to implement everything, it'd look like a painting that like my 16-month-old did. Like it's too much. Right,
just too much. Yeah. It's over. And Mila, my set decorator there, was so cool to me because she actually she belonged to a house back then, and she had walked in a few of the balls. So she was so fun to work with. And, when I would put my pitch boards together for Ryan and I would come back with it, and she would be like, oh yeah, totally. I know where that is. I know where I could get that. I know where we, or even finding locations and stuff like that. Cause I went to school in New York for 4 years, but I was definitely not in any sort of scene like that to know New York that well. And it was a different New York. So she was great at being like, oh, that happened, downtown here at this club. It's no longer, but this club looks like, so she was super helpful along the way.
Oh, that's great.
As well as Janet Mock and Stephen Canals. They were very involved, the writers of the show, along with Ryan, and just giving me their input on certain things, on how things looked and how their experiences were and stuff like that.
Was it hard? Is it hard to shoot in New York, or the
exterior part of it in certain areas is hard because New York literally changed from season 1 to season 2. Every time I go back to New York, there's more digital things popping up in the streets that people can charge their phones on or do that. And it's like, how are you shooting the 1990s or late 80s, early 90s TV show when, there's all these giant screens everywhere where people can charge their cell phones. So we had a lot of steam pipes covering things, and we'd make these giant boxes look like some sort of fire, something. So it's getting very challenging to do
I didn't even think of
TV,
that.
Period TV show,
especially
there.
All the digital, like out here, they took a bunch of them down like a couple of years ago, but all of a sudden there were so many digital billboards around. It was so distracting.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just the parking meters, just everything. Now the city bikes.
Yeah,
there's city bikes everywhere in New York now.
So you were back and forth because you started the Politician while you were doing Pose.
I was just finishing up Pose when I started pitching Ryan ideas for Politician.
The Politician is so bold and so graphic. Like, it's is that a design choice presented by you? Was that like something that was written? Is it Ryan?
So my first call with Ryan about the Politician, he was very brief and to the point, which he always is, which I appreciate. And he was like, I want the feel for this show to be like the Gucci 2018 line, but with like layerings of Call Me By Your Name. And I'm like, okay. I had to look, I hadn't seen Call Me By Your Name yet. And I had to look up the Gucci 2018 line because I didn't.
How do you not know that, James? How do you not know that? Hello.
I didn't get to catalog that that spring. So, you know, I looked it up and I was like, oh, okay, all right. So how can I graphically put my pitch boards together for this? So there was a couple of sleepless nights of like just lying awake, like how do those two things come together? Like how is this coming together? And then I did my usual, just like research, you know, go down the rabbit hole, and started to get inspired by Sister Parrish and Albert Hadley's designs. And once I kind of stumbled upon her, everything just started to flow and come together for me. And her use of patterns with bold colors in a classy way. I mean, she decorated the White House for the Kennedy. You know what I mean? Like it was just the perfect thing for me. And once I found out she had decorated the White House for the Kennedys, I was like, politician, like this is...
Yeah. It was meant to be.
This is all coming together. You know, it was that exciting moment. I, you know, stayed awake for so many nights, like trying to figure out how the hell to come together on this, like doing research, but nothing was inspiring to me. And then finally I like stumbled upon this and I was like, yes, this is, to me, Gucci meets, you know, the classic old New England layering that, you know, is Call Me By Your Name, which is Italian, but like, you know, just that whole vibe. And then, you know, I started in the current time period. So then I started to put my boards together and trying to mix it all together. And it came out, and there's some of the boards that I'm most proud of are the original pitch ideas for The Politician. And then I flew to LA and pitched Ryan, and he liked it all. And those boards became literally every set. It was like, okay, well, this set is going to be this board and this color tone. And each character had their own like colors and tones that I did for each one based off of the 4 initial concept boards.
Do you think being a graphic designer really keys into these things? I mean, it must, right? I mean, yeah.
I you know, attribute it to graphic designing and just my design education and what I've learned along the way from different people. I think it all comes together, because there'll be moments where I'm like, oh, this board's a little bit too, like, it needs to be more less realistic and more fun, you know? So there's always that creative balance, I think, that it helps. But yes,
I loved Lucy's bedroom in The Politician.
Astrid.
Right? Is it Astrid?
Astrid.
Oh.
The green?
Yeah, the green.
Yeah.
Which...
That was $8,000 wallpaper? Yeah.
I was going to say, which looked expensive, is what I was going to say. I will do the set for $10,000 as long as I can get my $8,000 wallpaper. That's awesome. Isn't it hard, though, sometimes when you see samples of wallpaper that are like 1 by 1, you're like, this is awesome. And then you see it up on the wall and you're like, whoa, this is a lot. And sometimes it's too much and it doesn't work. And sometimes you're like, I never could have imagined how great this looks. Like, wallpaper's very tricky, especially on camera, because you don't know if they're going to see this whole room and they're only going to be like bubble heads or whatever. So to take chances with wallpaper like that and other sets on The Politician is just like fantastic. It's so beautiful.
It did come with a moment of like, oh shit.
Yeah.
When it was up, I loved it. Like I had the a small sample, and I loved it. And I loved the reflectiveness of the gold underneath. And then I got in there and the sun was shining in a weird way. And I was like, oh God, is Simon going to freak out on me? Because this is going to be like bouncing light everywhere. And I was like, I had that panic moment of when you do a set and you're like, oh no, did I just bone somebody else on the crew? And so I immediately like sent some video and some pictures to Simon. I'm like, is this going to be a problem? Like, do you need me to tone this down? Is it? And thank God he was like, no, I think it's going to be great. I think it'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about the bouncing. I think it'll be fine. And I was like, oh, thank God. Because I really loved it. I fought for the expense of it. And then I put it up and I'm like, oh, uh-oh.
And then you chose zebra carpet. You didn't even like.
It was, if you saw the concept board and all of it together with the crazy pattern of the wallpaper with the zebra, it like, that's a great part about the boards is like you can see these crazy patterns together and how they can work.
Yeah.
And then so once you're decorating and you're like, oh, the zebra carpet will be great in here because we know it works on the board.
The other thing too is when you do these rooms and you look at it undecorated, the decor, like this has a bed in it and lamps and like it covers a lot of it up too, which is a sin sometimes, and but yeah, it just all like works, like the metals in the room and like I don't know, it's such an interesting room.
That was a location room. That wasn't a build.
Oh wow.
So when we went in there, it was like I think it was like round decor. It was like an office.
Oh wow. Oh, I just realized that it's not a carpet, it's a rug. So was that a rug you had made, or did the decorator get it?
The decorator. Oh, the decorator.
The decorator got it. Oh, I was like, at first I thought it was a full rug. It's crazy. And you decorated like the hallway. You did the wallpaper like the hallway or her bathroom. I guess it's her bathroom-ish.
Her bathroom.
There's like another room with the wallpaper.
The little hall. Yes, the little the hallway that goes into her bathroom.
Yeah, and then to like completely go the opposite way of this was the cabin, which is like old lady cabin for Jessica Lange. It's so awesome. I love that cabin.
I think they said her character was from West Virginia. I was like, okay, well, let's do this.
There's West Virginia.
Yeah. So, we found this great location, and Amber Haley, the decorator.
Wow.
What?
I thought it was a build.
No, that was the location.
Oh, wow. Where is that?
It's like kind of near Dodger Stadium. I'm not sure what that area is technically called.
I don't know. Alicia Park or something. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. So that it was over there, and that was a fun little redecorate. We did paint because we used the same bedroom for Infinity as her grandmother, and we just had to repaint it and change it, and we painted it. But the brown that's in there, the dark moodiness, is that location, and then Amber went in and decorated it, and I wanted to bring some taxidermy in and just kind of bring a little bit different to just be so contrasting between the two lives, between like Peyton and her.
Yeah. No, it reads really well. So I think I talked to you one time and you were like at a house in Malibu. Like you had so many locations for the politician.
So many locations.
What were builds? Were there like...
season 1, there weren't a lot of builds.
We did. Seems like you were on location.
We did the New York hotel room. That was a build. We did the classroom, one of the classrooms where Peyton is in all the time. We did that, and we changed that over to like another area in the school as well. We built that. We built Dusty's basement and Ricardo's basement. And we did all the builds for all the flashbacks, like when he was Lincoln getting shot, which was really fun to research that and rebuild that. That was fun. And I forget what episode it was when they're talking about the guy in the 70s who, all those little vignettes of like the steam room and then all that stuff. Those were all builds. And then everything else, it was a super heavy location show this first season.
Like the whole Gwyneth Paltrow house, was that the house in Malibu?
No, that was in Thousand Oaks.
Oh wow, huge house. Oh my god.
It's a pretty in the horse stables were all there as well. It's a big property, a big beautiful. The backyard, which is in the pilot, is different backyard than the Thousand Oaks house.
The, like, pool with, like, the...
Yeah.
Like, Greek statues or whatever, I think, or something.
They had all the animals that they were shooting.
Oh, right. With the arrows.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think one of the things that kept me watching that show was just to see, like, what sets were coming up because they were so graphic and so much fun. It was a really good show visually to watch. I really enjoyed that.
I love that show. I love designing that. And for me, that was my first... I didn't take over for anybody. It was my first out of the gate design. Yeah. So that's why I have a special place in my heart with it.
And then, so you did the second season of Pose, or you left? I forget.
No, I did the second season.
You did the whole second season.
The whole second season.
God, I don't even know how you... and they all begin with P. Like,
I know. I know. Pose, Politician, and the Prom.
And Prom, which is the film that you were working on and almost finished up right before COVID shut it all down.
Correct. And that is another fun popsicle. There you might, just because it's a stylistic, there's maybe some crossovers with Politician design-wise, because I'm the designer, so it probably is. But it's more of a poppy color, fun. A lot of fun builds we got to do. Building 44th, our version of 44th Street, downtown LA. New York's was so much fun, so much work, such a labor of love, and I really can't wait to see it. And then building our version of Sardi's, and
I went to Sardi's.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Our Sardi's is going to be a little different than the real Sardi's.
Well, whatever.
Well, it's just, it's a musical, so you have to...
You get liberties.
Yeah, exactly. I'm really proud of it, and I can't wait to be able to start showing people photos and seeing so hopefully we get to finish it soon so we can release it.
It's a film for Netflix by Ryan Murphy. Is it different working for him on a film and TV, or is it the same process?
It is the absolute same process. I think Ryan, cares about each individual project, and it for me, it was the same. It was, he gives TV the same respect as a feature. It doesn't change for him. They're all, I think, his project, his children. So,
well, that's good. You didn't have to learn a new process or anything for it
was the pitch boards, the looks, the 3D renderings and stuff like that. It just are a good way to hash out what he's thinking and what I'm thinking, because we're never I was over in Paramount and he's over at Fox, so when we had our weekly meetings, it's like, hey, am I going in the right direction? Is this where you wanted to go? And, and he would, navigate via the board.
Right.
So those are so important in our process.
So you're finishing up the Prom, and then you and I we started-ish the next American crime story of the impeachment of Bill Clinton, which I think we had 5 scripts, which were so good. It's so good. It's so good. Dark and funny and, not funny, but like a dark humor, I would say. And I'm really excited. I am really excited to redo the White House in a different era, and then in like a Ryan Murphy White House, just like not going to be a regular White House. Let's say it's recognizable, but it'll be,
it's going to be its own thing. Yeah. As we all take liberties on those moments.
And again, it was going to be a lot of locations too, besides you building a complete West Wing, a Pentagon, houses of Linda Tripp and Monica Lewinsky, and I'm sure plenty of other builds. I mean, it's a massive show that you've brought me into here.
Welcome to the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope you know what, I think COVID's going to change a lot of things. And hopefully we get to even build more. I think building is fun for you and I.
Yeah.
To create a world on its own rather than walking into something. I'm interested to see how this all plays out.
Yeah. I think it's, you know, they didn't used to go out and have 30 locations an episode. So, you know, if we tailor that back a little, I'm sure that's probably what's going to happen, I think. And I don't know, remember the days on House and Bones when they were like in the lab or in the hospital for 3 days of shooting and everyone had a breather? Like,
yes.
That's maybe how it'll go again. It'll be kind of nice to be like, oh, they're in the Pentagon today? Woohoo! Like,
right. We build sets that are shot more than just once. Like, yes.
Oh, that's crazy. One-timer? It's going to be beautiful. I mean, the sets are obviously going to be beautiful between you and I. But I think the next year is just going to be interesting for us, and I think we're going to be on this show for about a year.
I've already been on the Prom for I'm coming up on a year.
Wow.
It's like, I've been on the Prom and talking about the same
August, thing. Right?
I started the last 2 weeks of July.
Wow. Yeah. I said to my lead man, Patrick Alvin, like a couple weeks ago, I was like, I think our rap party will be like probably this time next year. As if we'll have a rap party, but...
Oh, yeah, right. Well, hopefully a vaccine and we can all party again together.
Yeah. I think it's just a little... Isn't she just the sweetest? Just sweet, but honest and very, I would say, like headstrong, confident, but very aware of what the set needs. I guess that's what I've already picked up on working with her as a decorator, and direct, like, this is the color I want, this is what we're doing, there it is. Or what do you have that we can go off of? She's just very direct in knowing what she wants. Very, very clear on palette. I would have to give her that. And that's super helpful for me and for the buyers. Like when we're out looking for furniture or picking fabric, it's a wonderful tool to have a palette to go off of. So I'm really glad that she designs it that way. She's also a fantastic dresser. I should put that in there too. She dresses well. I do applaud her for that. So I'm sure I'll be talking through the next almost year while we're on this project about how we're doing and if we're surviving. So I'm glad you got to know her a little bit, and yeah. I wanted to thank everybody for listening and for emailing any questions, and and following on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all that jazz. So thank you for following. If you had a couple seconds, just click up, click down, 5 little stars, click, click, click. I appreciate it so much. Thank you. Can you believe summer is over? Have you been floating on your Stogie Floaty? You better get on it. Stogie Floaty Luxury Pool Float. Available now on Amazon, Etsy, and stogiefloaty.com.
Welcome to Pro Tips for the Pros, brought to you by Floor & Decor Bailey's Crossroads. In this series, we'll explore essential advice for professional contractors to deliver outstanding renovation results. Let's dive in. Keep the work area clean and organized throughout the renovation process to create a positive impression and minimize stress for the customer. Regularly clean up debris and dust to maintain a safe and comfortable living environment. Thank you for joining us for this pro tip on planning thorough renovations. Stay tuned for more expert advice brought brought to you by Floor & Decor Bailey's Crossroads.
A lot of people tolerate ordinary. Ordinary bathrooms, kitchens, entryways. Well, not on your watch. If you're a pro, you've got a new partner in town. Floor & Decor. From tile to wood to stone, Floor & Decor has more styles and job lot quantities of Schluter, Mapei, Laticrete, and other brands pros trust. Come see a whole new way to wow with Floor & Decor. Coming soon to Bailey's Crossroads.